so I like to start my interviews off with a softball question. Mr. Tran, to you first. What was your first job in the movie industry?
Wow, my first job in the movie industry. I would say I was helping out on the student film, and I had to go pick up lunch for everybody. And so we basically I had to go to this one Italian restaurant off on Sunset, and I was so nervous, trying to pick it up on time and everything like that. And they made me wait in the back of the restaurant for such a long time. Then he gave me this two huge trays of pasta, and I stuck it on the back of my, the back seat of my Corolla, and I'm driving back, right? And then I was in such a rush, and then a red light hits, and I had to like stop short, and the pasta goes and it falls off into the back seat. So here I am trying to put it back up and trying to clean up the back seat and everything before the light turns green again. That was my entry into the film industry.
That's awesome.
But I made it on time, and I brought the food to everybody. I just didn't tell them that it fell.
Did you get any of the food?
No, I did not. I was too nervous.
Same question to you, Jenni.
Well, I definitely haven't had that job, but I think my first job was again short film during college, and because I had done theater, everybody was going, okay, who can do what? And then somebody had said, can someone do makeup? And I was like, well, I mean, I've done theater for makeup, sure, So then I remember I got like a really cheapy set from like Rite Aid or whatever, like that, like the cheapest possible, and then I made makeup like myself, and so all the characters just looked like me. And I think that there was actually one special effect where person had to be old, so I just did the theater thing where I put like I followed the lines and made it kind of brown. And I worked it out. I just did a very light version, not theatrical, and I mean, obviously I didn't become a makeup artist, but that was basically the first.
All right, so Mr. Trang, you wrote and directed this film. What inspired you to write this project? Well,
I mean, the original inspiration of the film came from the TV series, which was made in the Czech Republic in 1970s, and then it found an audience, in the late 80s and early 90s in Vietnam, and it created this huge following. And then kids would wait for every summer for this thing to be rerun. And so, the whole concept of a little girl named, a little alien girl named Maika, crash landing into Earth and then making friends with a group of kids. So that was pretty much the foundation where we sort of took the storyline from. And but then, for ours is very different, because instead of meeting a whole group of kids and having the whole storyline be about her having a press conference and revealing herself to be a delegate from another planet, I wanted it to be a much more personal experience, and of course that was also me being inspired by E.T. and being inspired by so many other films like Castle in the Sky, Hayao Miyazaki's film. And so I always thought like the relationship between Hong and Maika are very much like Pazu and Shita, and so you see a little bit of those elements as well in that. But largely, it's sort of just based on, I wrote a lot of my own personal experiences into the film. And so you'll see little bits of that, little slices here and there. Yeah.
Jenni, what was about the story in this project that might have kind of made you want to come on and be a producer on it?
Oh, okay. No, I mean, well, actually, Ham and I have known each other since I was 19 years old. So I was an undergrad at UCLA, and Ham was in film school. And we used to be in a theater group together. So needless to say, he's my boy bestie. And we both moved back to Vietnam around the same time. So we did one film before that together, Hollow, which I produced. And so this is the second film that I produced for Ham. And so at the moment, I was actually thinking about moving back to America, and Ham was like, Jenni, one more. And all he had to say was, well, first of all, of course, Ham. That was a big motivating factor. And then secondly, it was a kids movie, and I love kids. And so I said, okay, I'm just gonna do one more, and so Maika was it. It was a very easy answer.
Heartfelt story, but there's so many different times you're laughing a lot. So what was it like blending that together?
Well, I think it's because, coming from that theater experience, we're very used to working very sort of loosely with the script. And so my whole thing is just as long as, and then I try never to talk down to them as kids. I always try to get down to their level and try to explain everything to them so that as long as they knew what was going on in the scene, they were free from the script. They didn't have to say a lot of things that verbatim from the script. And so I also think that kids have a different way of expressing themselves, right? So I go, yeah, the line says this, but how would you say it, right? And so they would come up with their own ways of saying it. So I think part of it was just to let them be free to express in their own way, as long as they understood the story, and which they always did. And that's, the one thing I'm really grateful for is Fu as a child actor. What made him unique was that he can just remember things that are going on. That whole story of the moon cake, he did in one take and then one more for safety. That was it, right? And then they were so much in the zone at the time that, as he was telling the story, she was in character listening to it, and so we were really lucky that they had such great on-screen chemistry. Yeah.
And I think that particular scene, when he first got it, it was really difficult for him to remember the lines, because the way that it was written was very much like, a story, like a fairy tale story, and as if you're reading a book. How do you memorize the book? But what Ham said was like, okay, now you know what happened. Tell me back the story, put it away. Just tell me, like, there's no wrong answer, and then it ended up with the voices, and like, he ended up changing his voice and becoming the different characters, and that's all him. That's all the little boy.
Yeah.
Jenni T, what is it like, the film like debuting at Sundance like this?
Oh man, I mean, of course, we were all sad with that we couldn't do it in real life and had to be virtual. So but I have to say that, of course, the good thing about virtual is that you're able to talk to more people. Obviously, you could, you don't have commute times to worry about. It is strange to show the film and then sort of be like, oh, I think people were watching and I think they like it. There's no, like, obviously there's no reactions or clapping or anything like that. But in terms of just being in Sundance, I mean, Ham and I have been in Vietnam for over 10 years, and just having a film in Sundance we just never thought of our film coming and being kind of accepted in a global sense. And so it's a huge honor. And we're the first Vietnamese produced feature film to show at Sundance, which is an extra honor. And so it's just been like kind of like opening our mind for future possibilities, because we really believe that Maika can go far. And I just hope that the world can see Vietnam in a different light, because of course in the past most Vietnam films are about war, which is good. I mean, Ham's first film was about the aftermath of the Vietnam War, but now it's kind of like a new time. And so I feel like Maika is definitely a glimpse at modern Vietnam and what's going on now. And I hope that people are more interested in the stories that are coming out of the country.
Phenomenal. First off, congratulations to both of you for that. That's amazing. I didn't know that was the first feature film like that, did a debut at Sundance like that. And I think this kind of leads to the great question. And I have a final question for both you guys. And Jenni, I'll go to you first. Is what is something you learned about yourself during the process of making this project?
I think the biggest thing is, as a producer in Vietnam, it's not as the rules and regulations of filming are not as stringent, right, as the US, definitely. And so you really have to consult your moral compass, and you have to make films ethically. You have to, because you have the power, right? And you can abuse it. And I really do my hardest not to. I really believe in the process and the journey, that of course you make a great film, but you want everyone to feel taken care of. I want everyone to feel safe and happy, especially with this film, because it was kids, and then it's a family film. It's, there's so many, the kids are in like 90% of the films are just them. There's very little scenes where it's adults. So you can imagine it wasn't, we didn't have 100 days to shoot, we didn't have a huge budget like that. We still had to do, 12, 13-hour days. But it was about like really thinking about them as, people and with needs and wants, and and also just you know, concerns and worries. And so it really could just reminded me of the humanistic part of filmmaking. So I will always carry that with me.
No. What is something you learned about yourself while creating this project?
Wow. Well, I mean, for me, it's about asking for help, to be honest, because there were so many times that that I felt like, oh my God, I don't know if I can actually do this, you know, because the schedule was so tight. We kept having problems with COVID shutdown, and you know, to tell you the truth, like when you know, the way the filmmaking works in Vietnam is like a film is made within 9 months, literally, right? And I had just turned in the first draft, and they're like, okay, let's shoot it. We're like, no, this is just the first draft, you know? And so like the very first step was sort of me asking for help from my producers. You know, there's Anderson and then there's Jenni, and then saying to them, I don't know how I could do this. I'm supposed to, you know, tighten up the script, but they want to start pre-producing. They want to start doing all this stuff. So Jenni's like, don't worry, I know I've worked with other directors who are literally fixing the script the night before we shoot. So I got your back with all the other stuff. You just focus on getting the writing done, you know. And then my other producer, you know, he was great. Every scene that I wrote, that I would send it to him, and his name's Anderson Lay. And every scene I would write to him and write and send to him, and you know, and his one criteria was that it had the feels, right? The feels, you know, like just feel good moments. And so whenever I got the feels, you know, check from him, you know, then I was like, okay, this scene's ready to go. And so what I learned is that, you know, sometimes as hard as much as you might feel like you're on your own and you're trying to create this, you know, film is ultimately a collaborative experience. And so, you know, asking for help when you need the help is you'd be surprised what kind of help you'd get, you know. And we had that so many times, all the way up until the end. Yeah.